Marianne is beginning our coverage today. So as we begin, lots of things unsettled, unclear. Where do things stand as of 6 Eastern?
As of right now, Air Canada has said that they are resuming operations as of this evening. The initial plan was for that to happen yesterday, but then that was pushed to today, later today that is, because those striking Air Canada flight attendants defied that back-to-work order and stayed on the picket line. So a glimmer of hope possibly for anyone who has a flight scheduled for today or in the coming days, but specifically when this evening. An exact time has not been given by Air Canada. Meanwhile, striking workers on the picket lines, including outside of Canada's busiest airport, Toronto's Pearson Airport, made it very clear how they felt about that back-to-work order. The national president of CUPE actually ripping up that back-to-work order on the picket lines yesterday. This is the moment that really symbolized how those were feeling yesterday in defying that order. We know that more than 10,000 flight attendants have been on the picket line since Saturday morning. Just hours into that strike, the federal government then stepped in, invoking Section 107 of the Labor Code, essentially allowing them to ask the Canada Industrial Relations Board to get both sides into binding arbitration and to legislate those workers back to work. That was supposed to happen at 2 p.m. Eastern time yesterday, but as I mentioned, those workers defied that back-to-work order, remained on the picket lines, CUPE saying yesterday afternoon that back-to-work order was unconstitutional. As a result, 240 flights that were scheduled to take off yesterday were canceled. That's in addition to the 700 or so flights that were already canceled on Saturday, stranding about 100,000 passengers. Here's some of the frustrating stories of those passengers who are just basically waiting in limbo right now.
My partner has surgery on Tuesday, and it's a surgery he's been waiting for a while, so it's going to be really hard to rebook it if we have to.
We haven't slept, we've been calling, we're tired, and we lost out on some of our hotels as well because we're getting there late, so it's been very frustrating.
He works tomorrow. He's supposed to work tomorrow. I'm starting a new job, and I'd love to be home and take care of our house and our animals that are also at home.
So big question mark as to when the flight attendants will be off the picket lines, back on the job. But we know that if you have a flight scheduled with Air Canada or Air Canada Rouge, it is likely impacted. If it is canceled, you will be told that your flight is not going ahead as planned. But they're saying right now, if your flight is canceled, don't go to the airport unless you have another flight scheduled with another airline. At this point, Heather, as we've been warning people, if you have a flight booked right now that could be impacted by this job action, Air Canada right now offering options for you to reschedule, but also credits and refunds.
So with the union and the flight attendants defying the back-to-work order, what is the legality of that, and what are the potential consequences?
That is really the big question. Can they legally do this? We know that this has been done before by other unions, and that was a question I asked an associate professor and labor geographer from York University yesterday. He says it is messy and it can get chaotic, but this is how he explained what we could see happen.
1980s, Grace Hartman, president of CUPE, was jailed for 45 days when health workers refused to go back to work in Ontario. So there are precedents for this. And this is a case where what happens when governments who are seen to take an unfair path to get to influence collective bargaining in the sector, when workers just say enough is enough and they don't show up to work. So this means that there's even more uncertainty in the sector.
The workers have said they are not going back to their work unless there is a deal, a fair deal made. Of course, one of the main sticking points here is pay, including unpaid work by CUPE members. So that's what we've been hearing a lot on the picket lines. We also know there's been a lot of support from other unions. The Canadian Labour Congress says they had an emergency meeting last night to show solidarity for the striking Air Canada workers. Meanwhile, it is unclear what will happen if these striking workers defy the back-to-work order again today. Air Canada has not said what its plans are to try to get those planes back in the air. Of course, that may be very difficult if many of their flight attendants, more than 10,000 of them, remain on the picket lines. Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu has referred all questions regarding this matter to the CIRB, although it was her office, Heather, who of course asked the CIRB to put this order in place in the first place. So a lot of unknowns. We'll be watching this to find out how this develops throughout the day.